The Girl Who Chased Away Sorrow. The Diary of Sarah Nita, a Navajo Girl. New Mexico, 1864. Written by Anne Turner. The walls look bloody. Suddenly my bones feel strong. How my feet fly over the earth. Kaiba races beside me as the canyon walls soar upward, a warm pink with long black streaks down them, as if a terrible flood had marked them, or fire. When we slow to catch our breath, Kaiba gives me a quick sideways look. Sarah Nita? It looks like a monster was killed here, and those marks are of his dried blood. I shake my head and cannot answer. A terrible thought pierces me. What if what we've left behind is safer than what we've run to? And what if there are no people inside the canyon? It is too quiet. We walk deeper into the canyon. Our poor skinny dog's tail is between his legs, and I wonder if he is as afraid as we are. We let him keep the last squirrel he caught, so he is not starving. Not yet. Sparkling in the afternoon sunlight, the river runs through the sandy floor of the canyon. But where is everyone? There should be women filling their water gourds. There should be children herding their sheep to the river. But there is no one. Kaiba tugs on my hand, pointing to an old cornfield beside the stream. The stems stick up into the sky, and I shout, my voice banging off the canyon walls. Silvercoat sits on his haunches and howls at the noise as Sister clamps her hands over her ears. Hush! I did not mean to shout, but the sight of that cornfield is so good. Someone lives here. Somewhere. Another night alone. Though we walk until it is almost dark, we see no one. The sun leaves the canyon early, making dark shadows on the bottom while light still lies along the top of its walls. It makes me dizzy to look up, as if I am standing at the edge of a high cliff about to fall down. Kaiba wonders, maybe the people live farther in, hiding from the soldiers, Sarah Nita. I am looking for a rock overhang to shelter us from the cold tonight. Maybe we will find them tomorrow, I whisper, afraid to make too much noise. When we find a place where the rock wall bulges out, we unroll our sheepskins and curl up again to sleep on our own. Someone puts his arms around me. The next day is bright, clear, and cold. The sunlight has not reached the bottom of the canyon yet, and I think it must be colder here than it is at the top. After we thank Changing Woman and the Ant People for helping us to reach Tsei, Kaiba and I build a small fire for warmth. The cornmeal has been used up, and all we have are dried pieces of hard pumpkin. But when we soak them in water in Mother's pot and stew them over the fire, they taste of home. I am trying to be brave, to remind myself that a Dene girl is strong, but that taste of pumpkin makes me cry. Suddenly, Sister jabs me in the ribs. With no sound, no warning, people surround us. An old man with gray hair, a worn tunic and leggings, and an old woman carrying a water gourd. A girl and an older boy stare at us as I wipe my eyes on my dress. Yatahe, the old woman calls. Yatahe, grandmother, we greet her. Why are you crying, children? Where have you come from? She asks. I tell her that the soldiers took our family away, that my sister and I have been journeying from the south to Tsei, and that my father has clan here. Grandmother exclaims how brave we are, making the journey on our own, and how sad she is about our family. Solemnly, she asks which clan we belong to, and I answer that we were born to our mother's clan, the Salt People, and we were born for our father's clan, the Bitter Water People. They did not escape here, did they? Sister interrupts, naming each person in our family. Shaking his head sadly, the old man steps forward and hugs me.
Your father is not here, but we are from the same clan. Call me grandfather and my wife grandmother.
He says many long words about who is related to whom, but all I can see is the big smile on the old woman's face and the grins of the children. I am too sad to smile, and so is Kaiba. But at least we are not alone. Not anymore. And I think how lucky we are that out of all the people who could be in the canyon, the first ones we meet are from my father's clan. Even Silvercoat looks happy, wagging his tail and going from person to person in greeting. He licks grandfather's and grandmother's knees, feet, and anything else he can reach. Grandfather jokes, "That dog of yours is from the Pouring Water clan, and he's pouring water all over my knees." We find their hogan. When they tell us to follow them, we walk farther into the canyon. Kaiba's head droops, and her moccasins scuff over the dried grass. I take one hand, and one of the grandchildren, the little girl with the golden thread of yarn around her hair, takes the other. "I am Partridge Girl, and my brother is High Jumper." I take a quick look at his long legs and thin face. He reminds me of Swift Pony, my cousin. Grandfather talks in a low, quiet voice. The soldiers were near the canyon a while ago, driving away their sheep, setting fire to their cornfields. Some of their people have been caught outside the canyon and taken away by the soldiers. "The minds of the white men are filled with dark winds," High Jumper says in a bitter voice. Grandfather nods and reminds his grandson that the Bilagana have some plan that we do not understand. That we are being punished for raiding their ranches and taking sheep and horses. High Jumper strides ahead and slaps one hand against his leg, spitting out that now that the white men have burned our fields and stolen our sheep, the Dene are beginning to starve. Grandmother does not agree or disagree. And when I look at the lines in her thin face, I wonder how much they have to eat. Will we be a burden to them? But before I can ask, we stop near the face of a steep cliff. In front of it is a low, round hogan, like home. Grandmother tells us that there is still some food stored high in the rock face, and points to a nearby corral with some sheep and goats inside. "Goat's milk!" Kaiba looks hungrily at the animals. Grandmother pats her head, saying we will have some to drink later. When she pulls back the door blanket, High Jumper motions me to sit down by the fire. I feel as if my mother were hugging me close. The warm darkness of the hogan, the solid walls, and the blankets on the ground circle around me like arms. A beast is breathing in the back. They feed us cornmeal mixed with goat's milk, heated over the fire in a metal pot like mother's. Grandfather asks for the story of our journey, and Kaiba tells him part of it, I the rest. They seem to think we have done something brave and astonishing. Coming here all on our own? I wonder if I am brave, if I am becoming the kind of Dene girl my mother would be proud of. More people come into the hogan. A short, sturdy woman with a baby on her back. I learned that she is called Mexican woman because she was born to a Navajo slave and her Mexican owner. She and her mother escaped and came back to our lands, the Nita, when she was still a girl. I think this is a brave person, this woman, whom we will call Aunt. When Kaiba and I look at her baby in the cradle board and wave our fingers before her little face, someone coughs harshly on the other side of the fire. I thought that it was a heap of blankets there, but now I see it is a man under the coverings. Eyes closed, he makes terrible sounds when he breathes. Long sucked-in breaths, and then a slow sigh going out. Kaiba clutches my hand as grandfather explains that his son, Yellow Earrings, was shot by the soldiers a moon ago. Mexican woman is his wife, and I watch her kneel beside him, holding up the bowl of mush to his lips. Now the hogan feels dangerous to me with the half-alive man breathing and sighing in the corner. and I know Kaiba feels the same, for she never lets go of my hand. We feel like human beings again. Soon, more people come into the Hogan from outside. High Jumper and Partridge Girl's mother and father. He is called Man with a Lamb Hat, because he always wears such a hat, and his wife is Slim Woman. But we will call him Uncle, and she will be our other aunt. You must have a bath, children, and be cleansed and have your hair brushed, she tells us. I remember once Father telling me about a woman who had escaped from the New Mexicans. When she returned to her family, they did not know her at first, and had to have a special ceremony for her, to drive off ill luck and make her part of the family again. I wonder if that is what my aunt wants. We are shy about taking off our clothes, even though grandmother wraps us in blankets. When grandmother whips up yucca suds in a clay bowl, tears come to my eyes. For that is what mother used to do for us. Pouring it over our heads, grandmother rubs our hair until we are clean. Soon we are clothed in other wool dresses, neater than ours, and Aunt uses the stiff grass brush first on Kaiba, who squeezes her eyes shut in pain, and then on me. I yelp only once. Now you can feel like human beings again. Grandmother tells Aunt to give us some dried peaches soaked in water. Aunt passes the clay bowl to her son, High Jumper, who hands it to me with a shy smile. Welcome to our family. Kaiba sighs, leaning her head against my shoulder. The part that Aunt made in her hair is like a clean road over the middle of her head. We have traveled so far. I only hope this is the end of our journeying for a long time, that we can stay here until the crazy white men decide to let our people return to our lands. Then we will go back and find our family again. I vow this. I will look for you, my mother, until I find you. I will look for you, my father, until I find you, and my aunt, uncle, and cousins. We will be together again. Our first night inside. When it is dark in the Hogan, when the stories are over and everyone is fed, people roll up in blankets to sleep by the fire. We spread out our sheepskins, and Kaiba and I curl together. But I don't look across the fire or listen to the harsh breathing of grandfather's wounded son. With my face near Kaiba's clean hair, I remember something mother used to say. Only a foolish person borrows trouble from the days to come. But I know from what grandfather has said that even Sei is not as safe as it once was. The soldiers have already been here, and they could come again. Starlight, Aunt's baby, is making soft snuffling sounds as she nurses. She is so new, only born in the last moon. The sounds of her nursing cover up the other sounds I am trying not to hear. So I let sleep come like a friend this night. Instead of an enemy I must watch. Aunt lets me help with her baby. The next day, my aunt gives Kaiba the stiff grass brush to comb the tangles from our hair. Just like our mother, Kaiba says happily, brushing my hair. While grandfather and High Jumper go off to find firewood and Slim Woman milks the goat, my aunt tells me I can help her with her baby. She asks Kaiba and me to find soft cliff rose bark to shred up and put under the baby's bottom. When we find some, we peel off long strips and race back over the crackling grass. It is covered with frost, and the air is thin and cold in my nose. I can hardly believe it was warm enough to bathe in a stream a few days ago. Before I duck through the Hogan door, I look up at the gray sky between the canyon walls. I wonder if somewhere my mother is looking up at the same sky and wondering where I am too. Inside the warm Hogan, I watch Aunt unwrap Starlight, taking the soiled lining and throwing it out the door. Then I can hold the baby and play with her. I smile into her dark, surprised eyes. I think she likes moving her hands and arms with the air flowing up under her little woolen shirt. Kaiba makes a soft pile of shredded cliff rose bark and puts it beside the cradle board covered with deerskin. My husband made it in harvest time, before she was born, Ant explains as she begins to wrap a long strip of warm cloth around her baby. When she gets near her bottom, Ant tucks the soft bark inside the cloth wrappings and continues winding up to Starlight's neck. Then she is ready to tuck her into the cradle board. Kaiba wants to play with her, but Ant shakes her head. It is time for sleep, and we must be quiet. Soon the baby's eyelids close, and Ant holds her up so that her husband can see. When his eyes flicker open and his lips move, his wife says, "Yes, it's Starlight, your daughter." I think her smile will be like a patch of sunshine on little corn, making him grow stronger and taller. But his eyes shut. He sinks back into that dark place he lives in, and Ant's face clouds over. Kaiba and I race outside where we can be loud, shouting and running beside the river with our dog, to leave half-alive man behind. I am still afraid. We have chores to do now in the mornings, Kaiba and I. We get fresh cliff rose bark for the baby and throw the old used bark far from the hogan. High Jumper always goes with his father to gather firewood, for it is cold all day long now. Before Kaiba, Partridge Girl, and I leave to water the animals in the river, Ant fusses over us. Wrap up well in these blankets. It is the time of the great wind, children. I remember how my mother always wrapped blankets around us during this time, and my chest feels heavy when Ant snugs the blanket under my chin. If you hear anyone shouting a warning, come straight back here at once. The lookouts on the canyon rim will warn us if they see soldiers coming. But how can we live like this? Always looking over our shoulders, wondering when the soldiers will come next? When we come back to the hogan for stewed pumpkin, Grandfather tells us that the other families are hiding deeper in the canyon. Some in hogans, some in brushwood shelters they built after fleeing here. And though the storage bins higher up in the rock walls still have some dried corn and pumpkins, I worry about how much is left, worry if we have done the right thing in coming here. When it is our turn to dip our fingers into the pot, we only do it a few times, for there is never enough to really fill our bellies. If only the white men hadn't burned the corn and wheat outside the canyon. No one ever complains of the extra mouths to feed, but it hurts to see how thin Grandmother's wrists are when she reaches for the pot, to see the hollows in High Jumper's face, just like those in my sister's cheeks. Our dog is skinny too, though I think he is catching squirrels in the canyon. I saw him one morning with a furry tail hanging out of his mouth, and Grandfather joked, "I was wrong. He is not from the Pouring Water clan. He is from the Hairy Lips clan." In spite of the soldiers, in spite of our worry, we can still make jokes. We play the string game. On a night when the wind blows cold, making the door rug flap and the flames stream sideways, Partridge Girl picks up a sack near the wall. I can't see what she is taking out, but when she returns, she sits cross-legged near Kaiba. Quickly, surely, she loops her fingers through a tight length of brown yarn. "Stars in the sky," Ant calls from her place by the fire. Partridge Girl nods and holds out the web-like shape to Kaiba. Sister looks solemn, as if she's never played the string game before, but I know better. She's even swifter than me and knows many shapes. Hesitantly, she takes the yarn off her friend's fingers. Then, faster than I can see, she weaves a new pattern, yarn going over, under, and behind her fingers. "You are fast," says Partridge Girl, struggling to lift the yarn from Sister's hand. Grandmother laughs, as Ant does, with Starlight's head bobbing against her. For a moment, it seems as if the blue soldiers coming, the capture of my family, and our flight here is like something from a fever dream. Then the fire sputters. The sick man coughs. and I am back again in someone else's hogan without my family. What if the soldiers come? One morning, after we have been in sea for almost a moon, thick snow swirls down from a gray sky. It falls on the ledges of the canyon, turning the green pines white, and it bites my flesh, so I tuck my hands under the blanket. High Jumper is keeping me company today as we guard the sheep, while Kaiba is helping Ant with Starlight. What will we do if the soldiers come again, High Jumper? I ask. Where will we go? First, he points to a dark smudge on top of one of the canyon walls. That is the lookout, to warn us if soldiers return. And there are hiding places deeper in the canyon that no Bilagana knows about. There is a high rock farther in, where our people could climb to the top if we need to. He says that we could then pull up the notched tree trunk ladders so no soldiers could follow. That does not calm me. A high rock we could retreat to in the time of the great wind? And how would we get half a live man there? There is also a home of the Ancient Ones, High Jumper says, not too far away. Just this morning, Grandfather set off down the canyon to prepare a tree ladder to that rock house in the canyon wall, in case the soldiers return. I am afraid of ghosts and ghost sickness in that old house, but will not tell High Jumper that. Suddenly he says over his shoulder, I will protect you. How can a boy of 13 summers protect me from ghosts? He gives me a quick sideways glance, and I wonder why he's talking to me this way. I run after the sheep, shouting louder than I usually do as I drive them to the river. I wish, the way I do every day, that I were home again, in my own hogan, with my own mother, father, and family. I see strange pictures on the rock. A few days later, Kaiba, Partridge Girl, and I break the ice on the river's edge to fill our gourds. Partridge Girl has given Sister a piece of golden yarn to bind her hair too, and they look a little like sisters. High Jumper is ahead of us, jumping from one foot to another, trying to keep warm in the biting wind. I see how he got his name, with his great long legs like some wading birds, and the way he can leap up into the air. Suddenly, he calls to us to follow, and darts alongside the river. Following him, we keep away from the ice crackling its edges. Besides, Grandfather told me to be careful of the river, to watch out for the sand that sucks you down. We pass a brushwood shelter with smoke coming out of the top, and High Jumper waves to a boy outside. Soon, High Jumper stops, pointing up at the pink canyon wall dotted with small green pines covered with snow. My breath smokes in the air, and Kaiba pulls her blanket tighter around her. At first, I cannot see what he's pointing to. Then I see. Strange stick figures on the wall over my head. A bird, a man with a flute, a round circle. When I ask High Jumper what they are, he tells me they are something the Ancient Ones put on Sei's walls. He likes the pictures, but some people are afraid of them. They remind me of the pictures of the Yeis, the holy people that my grandfather put in his sand paintings when he was asked to cure a sick person. I am not afraid of them, Partridge Girl says in a high voice, standing close to my sister. Why should we be frightened unless there are still ghosts in the canyon? Grandfather says over and over there are no ghosts here. But when I turn away from the painted wall, my skin prickles, and both girls hold tight to my hands. Even our dog walks with his tail between his legs. I stumble on a clump of grass when I remember. This is the way my skin felt that terrible day on the mesa at home, when that wind came and changed everything. Is some evil wind coming here too? How white people came to be. The last few days have been so cold that we have all huddled inside the hogan close to the fire. Grandfather has been telling stories about first man and woman, and how the dene were made. My favorite is how the horse was created, with lightning in his ears, black coal for his coat, stars for his eyes, and streaks of rain in his mane. But when it came to the poor donkey, only the drab color gray was left for his coat, and thunder for his voice. When Grandfather tells a story, his eyes glisten, and he sits straighter, like a man of 30 summers instead of the 60 he says he has. His words spark pictures inside of me, as if someone hold lit tinder to kindling. I think that when our dog was created, the holy people told him to always do things in twos, When he barks, it is always twice. Kaiba puts in that when he sneezes, it is always 2 times. And when our bad goat ran away, he chased her back to the hogan and bit her 2 times on each back leg. Grandmother laughs and says softly, "Twice." The words bring us together, just the way the yarn in the string game makes patterns that link our fingers. Half-alive man speaks. While we tell stories, I try not to look across the fire at that heap of blankets that is a person. Not once have I heard him say more than 2 words, except this time. Highjumper wonders if first man and first woman created the white man, and did they know what they were doing? Maybe a dark wind came up when they were being made, and it entered into the hearts of those new people. The heap of blankets moves, and a hoarse voice comes out. When the world was made, there was leftover material. All the bad parts of the weasel, and the rattlesnake, and darkness. And that is what... He coughs and cannot continue. Aunt gives him juniper tea until he can go on. What white people are made of, he finishes. Grandmother pats his feet under the blanket, but does not smile. Kaiba looks at me with a question in her eyes, and I shake my head slightly. I know, and she knows, the true story, that the first white men came from the moon, and will return there someday, leaving the earth to us. Is Half-Alive Man getting better? Aunt hums softly to herself as she makes corn mush, and Grandmother's face looks brighter, calmer than I've seen before. But Half-Alive Man is like a shot deer that struggles to his feet one last time, only to fall back to the ground again. The breathing terrifies us. All night long he breathes in a way I have never heard before. It sounds as if he cannot get enough air and is gasping for it. When that happens, Grandfather's arm stretches across his blanket, and Grandmother's hand clutches his. I imagine that a strip of sinew connects us all, and when Half-Alive Man stops breathing, everyone is pulled tight by that leather. Then when he sighs, we sigh with him, our hands unclenched from the blankets, and the tightrope lets us go. Kaiba whispers to me, "What will we do if he dies in the night?" I am afraid. I am afraid too, but I want to calm my sister, so I begin in a soft whisper. If he dies during the night, the children of the ant people will come to carry him far away. We do not need to be afraid. Sister wonders where they will take the body, and I answer far, far away to a grove of tall pines beyond the canyon. Their feet will not be tired, their arms will not let the body drop, and we will all be safe. Finally, we fall asleep. But the next sound I hear is not his terrible breathing, but the wailing of my aunt that her husband is dead.